So let's move on to inheritance, which is the main topic for object-oriented JavaScript programming. So, like we have just discussed about the prototype of vehicle, which will contain all the prototype properties like check price and emission, which are explicitly defined on the prototype object of vehicle. And there will be the pseudo property of constructor defined already on vehicle. So now, to achieve inheritance, what we want is to reuse all the properties, methods of vehicle class and add some of the specialized functionality to the child class in which we'll be inheriting it. So we have created another constructor function known as car, which will be inheriting all the properties from vehicle. To achieve inheritance, we'll have to pass all the parameters that we need for the vehicle class, which is the parent class, and transmission here will be an additional class or property which will be available only to the child class car. So this is vehicle.call. Call is basically a JavaScript function which is used to call another function from inside the current function with the parameters passed from here. So here we are passing the current scope, which is this, and we are calling the vehicle constructor function, and we are passing all the parameters that we have received in car to vehicle. So this is another way of doing or setting the properties as this dot wheels dot is equal to wheels, this dot color is equal to color. So instead of repeating this code over here, what we have done is we have simply called the properties or the constructor function vehicle, setting the context of the current class car, this. So now car will have the properties wheels, color, and type also set along with transmission, which will be explicitly set using this dot transmission is equal to transmission. So now car will have all these properties, four properties on it defined. We can now again use car.prototype to add more properties or functions to it, like car.prototype is equal to engine, and here it will be returning this particular string. Now to see what car.prototype looks like currently. So here we can see that car.prototype is having just one engine as a property or defined on its prototype over here. Because currently we have not achieved inheritance completely. We have just called the constructor of the parent class vehicle. So all the properties of the constructor will be defined, but we have not completely achieved inheritance till now. For that, what we want is we want the prototype of car to be derived from that of vehicle. So ECMAScript 5 has introduced this function known as object.create. So what it is used for is to create a new object which will be derived using the prototype of what we have passed inside it. So object.create, it will be just, we are passing vehicle.prototype. So we want that there should be a new object created, which will be having all the prototype properties of vehicle, and that will be assigned to car.prototype. So now if we see car.prototype, what it looks like after we have assigned the prototype of vehicle to it here. Now it is pointing to vehicle directly because the prototype of a car is overridden by a vehicle prototype. So now it is directly pointing to vehicle prototype, which looks like this, the vehicle constructor function. So there's one piece missing over here is when we have overwritten the prototype of vehicle and we have assigned that to car.prototype, we have also overwritten its constructor property because we saw earlier that constructor is in like a default property of all the objects. So that is also overwritten by the vehicle constructor property. So we need to explicitly set the constructor property again because we have used this object.create vehicle.prototype. So for this line, we'll have to write this one as well, which is explicitly setting the constructor of car as car. So now if we see, we have again got the constructor property which was missing here because it was not set. So now we have the constructor property as well as the default proto. So car is now inherited from vehicle. It does not have its own prototype. It is using the prototype of vehicle. So this particular, if you want to see how it goes, here we have created a new object desire from car, and we have passed the properties 4 for wheels, red for color, sedan for type, and manual for transmission. And we are trying to display desire.color. So color will now be using the vehicle property. This dot color is equal to color which is set to it car now. So if we are running it, we'll see that it has returned red, what we have passed over here. Transmission we have already passed as manual, so we are getting this as manual. So now an interesting thing to see over here is if we want to see engine, for example, which was defined as a prototype property for car. We are not seeing engine at all. Why? Because we have defined it on prototype of car, but then we have overwritten it by vehicle prototype. So now car has lost its own prototype properties and it is overwritten by vehicle. So if we want to add additional prototype properties on the child object, we have to do it after we have created an object out of its parent prototype. So now here, if we add it, and then if we try to run it, we can see that we have got what we were seeking over here, which is the engine function of car. So this is what how we have achieved inheritance in JavaScript by using uh, the main prototype pattern and then creating a prototype out of the parent class and setting the constructor of the child class to itself so that we again get the property which was overwritten by using object.create the parent class dot prototype. So we can access all the properties of the parent class using the object of the child class. So here we have nowhere gotten any reference to vehicle, the parent class. We have just referred the child class, but we are still accessing all the properties which were set on the main class. Also, we can see if we want to access the parent vehicle dot check price. So we can do that by using the child object dot prototype dot check price. Let's see if that works. Let's comment out rest of the code so it does not create any confusion. Try to run it. Okay. Here. So why this error was coming over here earlier? Because we were trying to access check price on the prototype of desire, but desire does not have check price attached to its prototype, but it has the prototype set to the parent object. So by default, all the properties that were attached to the prototype of the parent object will be directly accessible on the child object. So that's how we see this.